Do you wave your terrible towel when Renegade plays? Reach for a tasty cake when JJ shouts, "He scores!" Does the sound of an F1 engine make your heart race? Doing push-ups with the Nittany Lion after a TD? Then lend us an ear, and we will share the exhilaration of Steelers football, the excitement of Flyers hockey, the nail-biting finishes of F1, and the pride when we yell, "We are Penn State." Welcome to the SteelFlyers Show, the strangest combination of sports fandom since pineapple was put on pizza.
Say howdy to your host, SteelFlyers.
Thank you. That is our lovely co-host RoNece. We are back and ready to roll with a great show, so let's get into it.
The NHL is rolling full speed ahead with the trade deadline fast approaching, and the Flyers are in serious need of some help.
The Steelers have made a lot of moves so far this offseason, and with the free agency rolling along, the draft is just a few weeks away.
F1 is getting fired up again with the winter testing over. We got new faces and new places, and an old friend and an old name return to the grid.
We have a lot to cover and a short time to cover it, and so we're going to get right into it. A huge thank you to everybody for listening in and watching and paying attention and following us and all that other stuff, so thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us on the show, RoNece.
Thank you for having me.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, so we have a lot of things we're going to get into on the show, and okay, so we'll start off with the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll talk
bad news first?
Yeah, bad news first, right? We'll talk a little bit about the Flyers, and we'll get a little bit into the NHL and things of that nature. So let's just dive right into the deep end of the pool here. The deadline is fast approaching, and there are a lot of teams in the hunt for players that could take them over the edge, and the Flyers are no different. I think the Flyers just need more help than can be achieved at the trade deadline.
The Flyers need to clean house and start from scratch.
Yeah, there's a good way to... But I mean, I don't think that the trade deadline is going to be...
That's not going to help them.
Yeah, it could be... Look, this team is not that far away from being a really, really good team.
So what's the problem?
The problem is that the same core group of people have been losing in Philadelphia now since 2010. We've been through how many coaches, how many GMs with the same core group of people, and they're still not able to win.
Right.
We're still having the same kind of inconsistent, game. There's no physicality. Everybody's passing, nobody's shooting.
Somebody said that they had looked at their Facebook from, 10 years ago, and were complaining about the same thing that we're still complaining about today.
Yeah. I had a fan of mine who sent me a text and said, hey, I was looking back at some of my old Facebook posts from 2012 and 2010 and whatever, and was looking at some of those Facebook posts, and it's like, man, we're complaining about the same things from the same players. Okay. What I mean by not going to be able to get it done at the trade deadline, I don't think you're going to be able to do enough to right the ship here at the trade deadline in order for the Flyers to try to, quote-unquote, make a run.
Right.
That ship has sailed.
A long time ago.
Yeah. About 7 or 8 losses ago. Okay,
and
seriously.
Here's my thing. It's not like we're losing by one bad goal or one, dirty goal that the other team got. No, we're losing 9-0.
Yeah, we're getting housed.
I mean, it's like they're not even showing up anymore.
Gosh, what do you know? Huh. Hey! And here's the other thing, too. All the guys that are waiting in the wings, and everybody's clamoring, oh, bring on the youngins and whatever, and I was one of them. Okay, but here's one of the things. Apparently, these youngins aren't NHL ready.
Obviously.
And aren't capable of playing in the league. I mean, they're lighting it up in the AHL for the Phantoms, but I guess the coaching staff and management clearly doesn't feel that those guys are capable of playing in the NHL. Well, so I'm supposed to trust these guys and their assessment of these players when they can't bring players to win now with, and they continue to use the same guys night in and night out, and nothing's changing.
Well,
I saw a tweet again today from one of the greats saying that the team is practicing with the same lineup as what they had last evening.
Why?
I'm...
Here's another question for you. We can keep changing the coach, we can keep changing the GM, we can keep changing everything. But at what point do we give up on the players that we have and say, okay, we've tried, maybe it's time we move on?
You can't fire 23 players.
Why not?
Right. Why not? Can we start? Seriously, can we start firing some of the players?
Do you think AV will be the coach by the end of this year?
I'll tell you what, I'd be hard-pressed to see if even Chuck Fletcher is still the general manager. And if Chuck Fletcher's not the general manager, then AV is going to soon be out the door as well. Okay? I think that there have been quite a few mistakes that have been made with this team as far as the off-season moves. If you look at the history of what Fletcher has done with some of his other teams, like Minnesota, they all had the same problems. And then you look at teams that were coached by AV, and they all suffer the same problems. Yeah, they're good, but they lack physicality, and when it gets down to the nitty-gritty time in the playoffs, they can't hang because teams like Tampa Bay and are more physical and can rub them out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's exactly what's going on here with the Flyers. We saw that clearly evident in the playoffs last year against Montreal and against the Islanders. Montreal and the Islanders are not the most physical teams in the league, but
they're somewhat physical.
And we couldn't even stand next to them. I mean, not even remotely in the same room.
I know.
So, this is going to be horrible. Everybody's going to be asking for my head, and I don't really care. Giroux, man, dude, it's been a slice, but pick a team you'd like to go to. Hopefully it's a contender, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Voracek, see ya. Gotta go. We need your scout. We need your salary cap space. Either release him, waiver him, or trade him, or something. Gotta go.
Well, Chuck Fletcher had a press conference this week, did he not?
Oh, yeah.
What did he say in the press conference?
It sounded like... Now, look, we don't go here on this stuff, but he sounded like a politician.
Okay.
He said a whole bunch of stuff for 6 minutes that was a whole bunch of nothing.
He said nothing.
Yeah. He said a whole bunch of nothing. For 6 minutes. That's pretty good. For 6 minutes. He did take onus on the fact that he made the mistake of not replacing Niskanen. So all the off-season moves have happened that are now biting you in the hiney right now, and you're only taking blame for one of them. Okay. And the whole time, this is the other thing that's really kind of driving me crazy, because the whole time AV's saying, yeah, we're excited about this team and we're good. We're excited about this team and we're good. And that's all I've been hearing from the coach. And you hear that from Chuck Fletcher from time to time and whatever. Well, what are you excited about? What is there so exciting about this team that you're so excited about? Show me!
Right.
What about this team is good? Show me.
Something.
I continually see this. I continually say this. I keep seeing the same guys in the lineup over and over again, and nothing is changing. We continue to lose. We continue to be horrible on defense. We continue to have the same mistakes. We continue to be inconsistent.
Right. That's a big part of it. I mean, one night you got a goalie who can stop every goal, and then the next night he lets in 9 goals. I mean...
that's another thing, too. Okay, when you constantly leave the goalies out to dry like this, they're developing bad habits. And the fact that this is a condensed season, there's no practice time, so you can't work on bad habits, you can't work to correct bad habits as easily, and so you get into those bad habits, and unfortunately they're going to kind of stay because you don't have any time to,
to correct it.
I'm going to say this. I believe that when the Flyers were hit with the COVID,
that was the beginning of February?
Something like that, yeah. That really was the worst timing in the world.
I think it really affected them because
it really did.
It wasn't this bad. at the beginning of the season. It was
okay.
not great, but it wasn't horrible.
But there were a lot of red flags. Like, we were getting completely outshot, for most of the whole... For almost every game that we played, we were completely getting outshot and outplayed. We just happened to be able to score more goals than them. I mean, so I think we kind of got lucky in that opening, 10, 12, 13 games, and we're able to, come out of the gates and do well because we were able to come out of the gates with pretty much the same team that we had last year, pretty much.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the culture needs to change in Philadelphia. And I think the culture needs to change in Philadelphia what I mean by that is the core. The leadership group in the Philadelphia Flyers needs to change. It needs to be another voice in the room like Couturier.
I think that it's just... I don't understand. I mean, there's so much talent on this team, and it just never comes to fruition.
Okay, here's the thing. We, as fans and analysts, we look at this team and we go, and you analyze the team and say, yeah, and you look at a player individually and go, Voracek, pretty good player, can score, can make plays, is a good passer. Giroux, great on face-offs, good passer, great playmaker, can quarterback the power play. Right? So all these players you look at individually, right? TK, fast, good skater, makes good passes, has good vision, whatever. You notice how every single one of these players I'm saying, they're all playmakers. They're all passers.
Right.
None of them are shooters. None of them are finishers. We got one guy on the team, Farabee, who's actually shooting the puck. And the one guy, look what he's doing.
Right.
Could you imagine if the Flyers had two more shooters?
We might actually score some goals.
But if we had those guys on the team that are thinking shoot first instead of pass, you can see it. They're coming down the ice, they get to the blue line, and they're looking around for somebody to pass it to. They're not looking at the net to shoot it. They're not winding up for a slap shot or nothing. They're looking around for guys to pass it to.
And is that on the players or is that on the coach?
Yes.
Both.
Yes. Because the coach coaches his system. And then the players, you put the players into that system. Well, now I get that the coach can only use the players that are available to them for this particular system. And it's unfortunate because AV's system is an up-tempo style, but there's no physicality.
And that's hurting them.
And that is really, you can't play against teams, especially in the East and in the North, in the league, period, with just being, instead of skating up to a player and body checking the player, they're stick checking the player.
Which doesn't work.
No, that's not how that flies. It's right there. It's wide open. I'm so frustrated.
And a lot of Philly fans are frustrated, and a lot of questions are...
watching the game is becoming an occupational hazard now.
I know.
It's tough. It's hard to watch these games and then try to, find something positive. It wasn't a shutout. Yay! We scored some goals. Yay! All right, some guys got on the score sheet. Yay!
We got outscored 2-1, but we still scored.
Oh, there was a 5-minute power play at the end of the game because that was the fight. And he got fined for the fight. Sam Moran got fined for that fight. Are you kidding me? First, they fire a ref.
Let's talk about that. Let's
talk about that.
Let's address that situation.
Yeah, I think we should probably hop into that a little bit. The NHL...
technically, he wasn't fired. He just retired.
Oh, no, he was fired.
No, they came back out and said...
Okay, so they walked back on that a little bit then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that just goes to show you. The NHL initially fired Tim Peel, referee, for a hot mic incident where
Wait, I want to say one thing about hot mics, okay? This happens all the time. People get caught saying things that, they didn't...
on hot mics.
If you're wearing a microphone, why don't you just assume that everybody can hear you at all times?
And not say things that people can hear
I
you
mean,
at all times.
you'd think that would be common sense. Done now, sorry.
Okay, so he was caught on a hot mic saying that he was providing a makeup call.
For Nashville, correct? Against Nashville.
Against Nashville, yes. And it's and then the NHL was like, they put the giant crocheted piece of blindfold on and say, yeah, we don't see any of these makeup calls. This doesn't happen in the NHL.
Yeah, right.
And we didn't see anything. And what? This guy had a makeup call? Are you kidding? Oh, no, we can't have that. And the NHL then proceeded to fire the referee who was supposed to retire after this year and ride off into the sunset, blah, blah, blah. Well, Mr. Pio, unfortunately, had an open mic and was heard saying that this was a makeup call. And so the league then proceeded to fire him.
But it's just that the NHL management, or whatever you want to call it, didn't acknowledge that this happens all the time. That they pretended that this was...
the first time ever.
A fluke, and how dare... come on. We all know what happens.
That's the one thing that we've all talked about in all the shows that we've done where we've covered this, and I have a feeling we're going to cover a little of this tonight in the Off the Wall Hockey show with John, as the situation here with this referee being fired. We talked about it on the Perlo show the other day too. You can't sit there and tell me that the league doesn't know that this doesn't happen. Everybody on the planet knows it happens, and you're telling me now that the league doesn't know it happens?
Come on.
Yeah. Okay.
Which just, honestly...
Big black eye for the NHL.
We have mentioned it before, and I know you've talked about this a couple times on different shows, that there's a lot of inconsistency in penalty calls. And it's not just, hey, they keep calling my team. No, it's on all the teams. There's a lot of, this player does this and gets away with it, and
great point.
This player doesn't.
Exactly. Look, this is the first year where I've really, really been able to watch a lot more other games, a lot more other hockey games. And I've tried to take notice of a lot of different things in hockey games now that I'm able to watch a lot of the games now. And I've tried to notice the refereeing and how each games are going, how they're called, and I look at, and it just seems like they're taking a coffee break this year. Like, it just doesn't seem, I see phantom calls, and look, I'm not talking about watching the Flyers versus anybody. I'm talking about, like, say, a Vegas versus Colorado game.
Right.
Exciting game, great players, great teams in the fight, and the refs are calling penalties that, what?
Right.
Huh? You're calling a high stick? Well, there wasn't even a stick anywhere near that guy's head.
Right.
And then they call plays, or they don't call penalties that are completely and utterly vagrant penalties that should have been called, and everybody skates away, and there's no call.
Right.
Or it's, see, here, look, I put a tweet out this week in regards to this whole thing. I have the utmost respect for the NHL referees. They are some of the most in-shape people on the planet, and they have got one of the most toughest jobs in the world. Because let's face it, trying to track a 90-mile-an-hour slap shot into some guy's equipment and then trying to figure out whether or not that puck is in or not, that's a tough job.
Right.
And guys now are, 200 and some pounds, and they whiz by you at 15 miles an hour, and things happen so quick. Look, they're human. Now, over the last couple of years, they've added more linesmen to the ice, and now there's even more eyes and referees. And there's even side judges when they're off the ice. Mm-hmm. And there's Toronto, the big eye in the sky, is looking at everything too now.
Right.
So there really shouldn't be excuses as to why penalties are not called correctly. You guys wanted all this stuff in the games, now it's all there, and they're still not doing it.
And it's so individual and
Yes.
subjective.
That is perfect, because that is what I noticed watching other games, where if you get a set of referees that work a game, and they'll call certain penalties, they'll make sure that they call the slashing penalties, but they let the trippings go.
Right.
Or they let the interferences go. Right? And then another set of refs will be all about the interferences and the trippings, but the slashings and the holdings, they don't see any of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, wait a minute. No. Look, like I said, I have the utmost respect for these guys, but the black and whites should not be deciding games.
That happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
Actually, that happens in all sports, is where the referees have the power to really decide what team wins or loses. And that's
sad.
Unfortunately, a product of the system, which...
Yep.
But...
I mean, and the other thing is they shouldn't be deciding games. And if you are going to call it for one side, then call it for the other.
Yep.
Okay? Be consistent. And cut out this ticky-tacky garbage.
I love when we listen to a game and an announcer, the person calling the game goes, well, that was a...
it's bad when the announcer is saying that should have been a penalty.
Or it shouldn't have been a penalty, and they're, like, confused about why that was a penalty, and they didn't quite see that, but...
We listened to the great Jim Jackson, and he's been a wonderful guest on quite a few of the shows here, and God love him, man. He's got a tough job right now, because to sit up there and still be cheerful and still be positive when when the Flyers are just not giving you any reason to be that way. So, all right. We're getting into trade deadline's going to be coming up here real soon, and I think there's going to be a lot of teams and a lot of players that are I think everybody's just kind of in a holding pattern right now, and I think they're just kind of afraid to drop that shoe.
Well, is the salary cap affected by that? Is it going to make...
The salary cap is flat for this year and next year, and potentially the year after. Okay, so teams that are going to have to move players are going to have to agree to eat salary. That's the only way it's going to happen. And there's a lot of teams that don't have salary to do that with. And there's an expansion draft at the end of this year as well, too. So if you put a lot of bricks on the block for the trading and to get one or two guys, and then suddenly the expansion draft comes and you're not able to protect those guys, you're kind of up the creek now, because those guys are going to be exposed. And they're going to be available for the Seattle Kraken.
Well, if you trade for a big name player, now you have to protect that player and another player on your team that you would actually like to keep to work with, that in tandem, you can't protect that player. And
that's right.
So yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. This whole trade deadline thing is going to be really interesting, especially with if they do not allow players to go between United States and Canada without having to do a quarantine.
Well...
Okay, and as far as I know, they are still negotiating this, and this has not been resolved as of yet. So I think this is going to play a major factor in where players go and who they're going to be traded with.
Well, because let me understand. I'm trying to understand that. So if they're doing a trade, the point of the trade was to get to that player on the team and playing immediately.
Well, yeah, that's usually how that works.
Well, no, but I mean, sometimes you don't necessarily...
Right. Well, okay, so like this year now, with the way the Patrick Laine and the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade went down, okay, because one was going to Canada and the other one was coming from Canada into the United States. So Laine was able to play sooner because he was coming from Canada into the United States.
Right.
So the quarantine time from Canada into the United States is shorter than it is if you go from the United States into Canada. So Dubois had to wait longer before he was able to play. But they were able to do that trade, and everybody waited the full time for quarantine days and whatever. They're trying to negotiate that so that that's not the factor for the trade deadline moving forward.
Right.
So until that happens or crosses the finish line, that's kind of where we're at. You know what I mean? So A lot of things going on here with the NHL and the trade deadline coming up and things like that. So I'm just impressed that the NHL is playing games in season, and you know what I mean.
I mean, they're trying, but there's some broken cogs that need to be fixed.
But all in all, though, putting a pretty decent product out on the ice. I mean, there's hockey games now every day, not just one, but multiple hockey games now every day. You know, and it's really great, and we're going to be so spoiled when next year we have to go 3 or 4 or 5 days between watching our team play.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we're so used to every other day we're playing. Yay! Next year it's going to be like, oh, well, last year there was a game.
Right. and we'll be on a normal schedule too, so we have to wait until October for games.
Yes.
Which will actually be nice because we don't have to wait till January.
Yes. Exactly. So, all right. Let's get into some movers and shakers that happened starting the off-season here with the NFL. The start of the year happened, I believe, on the 17th of March. And free agency began the day after.
Okay.
Well, actually, the coercion period happens... Or you didn't really talk to the players, but really you did talk to the players. You signed a player to this massive deal, but it really isn't official until the 17th, and like the Carson Wentz deal.
Right.
He got traded and whatever, but that didn't go through until the...
Don't understand that at all, but that's just me.
Boy, I'm glad I'm not an Eagles fan. That's all I can say.
No, the Eagles are probably happy about it because Carson Wentz is... injury prone.
True. And Jalen Hurts, I'm all for Jalen Hurts. I would have loved to have seen him come to the Steelers. We had an opportunity, the Steelers did, that's who we're going to talk about next, by the way, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, had an opportunity to pick him in the draft last year, did not, and boy, I think that's going to be a big mistake.
I think so, too.
I think Jalen Hurts would have looked really good in black and gold and would have been a great successor to Ben. Has that same kind of gunslinger type of mentality, has all the tools. I think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback as long as he gets some good coaching there in Philadelphia.
And has some weapons to throw to.
All right, so speaking of Ben and the Steelers, the Steelers were able to rework Ben's contract and save $15.5 million.
Which is great.
Congratulations, appreciate that very much. Ben is going to take a $4 million pay cut and only make $14 million this year.
I don't know how he's going to survive.
Against the cap. Yeah, gosh, man. I'll tell you.
I'm sorry. That was
paycheck
mean.
to paycheck there on that one. And then most of all his other money was rolled into a bonus. And he's also, I believe, signed until next year, I believe.
Yes.
So, okay. That's great. Ben was was able to rework his contract. Unfortunately.
We lost Bud Dupree.
Well, we lost Marquise Pouncey to retirement. We lost Vince McDonald to retirement as well. And then we lost... look, the Flyers had a bevy of free agent... Oh, I'm sorry. The Steelers had a bevy of free agent players that were going to be free agents, that were going to need to be re-signed. And there was no way with the salary cap situation that the Steelers were in, they were going to be able to sign everybody.
Right.
There was just no way that was going to happen. And to expect that was just ludicrous.
Well, I mean, we all knew some changes were coming. I mean, there's just no way. And it's happening for every team, right? Like, every team in the NFL?
Well, okay, that's fine, but I'm only concerned about the Steelers right now.
Well...
And with their salary cap situation and being able to rework the contract for Ben Roethlisberger, that allowed the Steelers to re-sign a few of their players.
Which is good.
Which is really good. One of the players that we were a little bit worried about that might have been on the block, and once when you look at everything, you realize that probably not was going to be on the block. And it's probably why he did re-sign with the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster is back with the Steelers for 1 year. It's a weird contract because it's 1 year, $8 million, but it's incentive laden, and then there's a huge signing bonus on it.
Right.
So he only counts for like $1.16 million against the cap.
Okay. Which means we get to keep him for another year.
Because, I really like how Chase Claypool has developed, and I think he's clearly the number one. I really think that Juju is turning into Hines Ward 2.0, is becoming that possession receiver, the guy that goes over the middle and is able to make those catches. I'd like to see that happen, and if he can do that this year, I think he'll be able to garner a better contract with the Steelers for next year or something along those lines. We also got to re-sign our buddy Spillane.
Yes.
So that's awesome sauce.
However, we did lose...
we did lose Bud Dupree.
And who else?
All right.
Alalu.
And we also lost Nelson and Hilton.
Right.
So, the Alalahu was a good run stopper. That's going to be, but we re-signed Wormley, and we've got some other players in there that we think can step in for that. But the problem that I'm seeing here is the fact that we lost Nelson and the fact that we lost Mike Hilton. Those are two corners, two slot receiver covers that we're going to need and we're going to miss. Okay? Now, we are going to see Hilton. He signed with the Bengals.
Yay.
We're going to see Bud Dupree sign with the Tennessee Titans. Man, he signed a big old contract.
Well, hey.
$35 million guaranteed, $85 million for 5 or 6 years, something like that. Yeah. So congratulations to him on that with the Titans. The Steelers were able to re-sign Juju. They did re-sign Zach Banner.
Oh, I like that.
So that's a good tackle coming back off of ACL, and we're going to need that because we did not or have not re-signed Alejandro Villanueva. Okay.
Was he let go, or is
his contract is up?
Okay, and they haven't re-signed anything.
No, he has not been re-signed, or he's been in talks, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
We also get Devin Bush back.
Yes, we get Devin Bush back, too. That's going to be a big one. We did re-sign B.J. Finney. That's going to be another cog on the offensive line. I think that's going to take over for Marquise Pouncey as our center.
Okay.
Okay. We're also going to probably see Chucks and Dodson play on the offensive line this year. And I think DeCastro is still re-signed until next year. I can't remember on that or what's going on with that. I do like that we were able to re-sign Cam Sutton.
Okay.
That's going to help. Getting Devin Bush back from injury, that's going to really help. Spillane back, having him re-signed is going to really help as well, too. Bringing in Miles Killebrew is going to be a nice help.
What position is he?
He's a linebacker.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's going to help as well, too. So I think that although the Steelers didn't make a lot of splash moves, they weren't able to because they didn't have the money to do so. But they were able to retain a good, sizable chunk of their free agents. And then they were able to either replace the guys that they lost for the most part or, hopefully we can have some good drafts. And hopefully the guys that are young can step up. Marcus Allen hopefully will have more of a role this year on the team. I'd like to see that happen as well, too. Hightower is going to have, or Highsmith is going to have. Highsmith is going to have a really good year this year, I think.
Yeah.
After his rookie year last year.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
The draft is coming up at the end of April.
Yeah.
What is the number one priority for the Steelers to draft? What's your opinion?
My opinion. Oh, by the way, speaking of number one priorities in the draft, Kevin Gilbride was also re-signed to another year. So he's also going to be the general manager. What do I think Steelers' number one priority is? Well, quarterback.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, they need a quarterback.
The
heir apparent to Ben is not on the roster.
No, unfortunately. I mean, we have had Ben for the last how many years, and
since 04.
Yeah, and he's been a great quarterback, and he's kept this team for so many years in contention.
Yeah,
but you can only play for so long.
Yeah,
he's not Tom Brady, unfortunately.
Well, if there was a better team around him, I think he could have been better. Because I think he's a much better quarterback than Tom Brady. I like Ben's arm more so than Tom Brady's. I also like Ben's gunslinger mentality a little bit more so than I like the pocket passer guy. Not that I have anything against that per se, but I'm more of the ilk of the guy running around trying to make plays and trying to, extend it and trying to, But then again, there's also something to be said for a guy that's willing to throw the ball out of bounds and fight for another day. So I'm all for that. Okay. We need a quarterback. I know we got the Haskins guy from Washington, and
which I don't understand. You got a quarterback that was benched on his team. I would have liked Alex Smith for a little while, but that wasn't going to happen.
Well, yeah, but that's a lot of money for a backup quarterback. And right now, we don't have the space we don't have the luxury of money to have that type of a guy as a backup quarterback, which is why we have Rudolph and Haskins and whoever else we got on the team, Dodds and whatever else. Okay. We need to draft somebody that's a quarterback that's going to be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this would be a really good draft to do so. The only problem... The problem is that the Steelers don't have a very good first-round draft pick. It's like 20th. And I'm here to tell you, the best quarterbacks are going to be long gone by the time that 20th pick come roll around.
Is there somebody that could be, molded a little more than,
So maybe what we could do is package up this Dwayne Haskins and some other something, maybe, hopefully, and try to move up.
Maybe. In
the draft to get a quarterback or... The problem is this. The draft is not going to be very deep in quarterbacks in the next 2 years. So if you don't get somebody this year, you're probably looking at 3 years or 2 years down the road before you're going to be able to get another batch of good quarterbacks.
Right.
You know what I mean? So... That's what I think needs to happen. I think they need to get a quarterback. I think they need to get an offensive line, a center to replace Pouncey. The fact that they didn't know he was going to retire this year and completely didn't draft a guy last year. What? Anyway.
Did Pouncey, make that decision because of the season we had? Do you think? Do you think he just said, I can't do this anymore?
I think he just... came to that conclusion that he can't play at the level that he wants to this year, and you saw it. You saw him drop off this year, man. He's had quite a few injuries over the years, and you know what I mean? He's played really well, and I think he's a good center, but in the biggest game of the year, and the first thing that your all-star, all-pro center does is hike it over your head.
No, that was in the playoffs, wasn't it?
Does it really matter?
I don't know.
The most important game of the season, and then what's he do? Hikes it over his head?
That wasn't the only problems.
I know, but that was just one of...
So, speaking of problems, we all know that the run had disappeared from our game.
Run?
Run the ball.
Run? What's that?
That's where they take the ball and they move their feet and they go fast that way. And we didn't,
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We didn't do that this year.
No.
But do you think we'll see an improvement in our running game?
One of the names that we did not talk about at all was James Conner. He has not been re-signed, and he probably won't be. Because we don't have the money.
So who's going to take his place?
Well, look... I think that the running back room for the Steelers is actually pretty good. I'm happy with the McFarland. I'm happy with the Samuels. Not so much the Samuels, but more the McFarland, more the that player more so. I wouldn't mind if we brought Connor back, but
you don't think that's going to happen?
I think they're probably going to draft a running back. Again, because, here's the funny thing about this team. The ownership comes down and says we need a run game. They've been saying that now for the last 7 years. And it seems like every year we draft a running back.
And we just never have a run in
And
it.
there's never a run game. We're 29th, 27th, 30th,
Well,
25th,
you know,
14th.
If we... The complaint we had last year, and this wasn't just our observation, it was league-wide, was the Steelers were so predictable that there was no... You didn't even have to watch the game tape more than once. You knew exactly what we were going to do. We knew exactly... It was just...
Okay, so that's going to change, I think, because the offensive coordinator from last year is no longer on the team.
Yeah, but the guy who took his place was under him, so...
Yeah, but he was brought in, he was not technically under him. He wasn't part of his tree. He was brought in from outside.
Okay.
The previous year to be the quarterback's coach.
Okay.
And so we're going to see what type of OC Canada is going to be. And I think we got to see some of that last year with some of the plays that you could tell were not Fiechner plays. Because there was movement and there was, shifting and there was some things. And, you could tell they weren't Fiechner plays.
Right. Like there was actual yardage gained.
And when you have guys that go in motion and the defensive guys don't follow your motion guys because they know that doesn't mean anything, they pretty much got the play called, I think.
Right.
So hopefully that changes this year.
I told you I have my new catchphrase, the Fiechner rule. Doing the same play over and over again and hoping it changes.
Stop talking about the Flyers like that.
Doing the same play over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
Stop talking about the Flyers like that. Oh, we're talking about the Steelers. Okay. I think it's going to be a tough year this year for the Steelers. I really do. If
I think we're going to be...
if they cannot come out and run the ball, and if the offensive line cannot gel, right? If the offensive line cannot gel and we can't run the ball, it's going to be a long year.
I have a sinking suspicion that we're going to have some very lean Steeler years in the next future.
Well, I also think that a certain coach is on the hot seat, too. And that if the Steelers don't make the playoffs and win a playoff game, then I think there's going to be a certain coach that's not going to be retained. And the reason why I say that is because this past season, the ownership fired Fiechner and some of the other assistants and said these assistants are not going to be re-signed.
Right.
The coach is the one that hires those people and stuff like that. So when the ownership comes out and says, no, that pretty much means that your job is on the line.
Right.
Because ownership is coming down and saying, no, we're not hiring these guys again. Your pick was wrong. So I would not have a problem if Mike Tomlin was let go. I would like to see a new voice in this room. I would like to see a new philosophy for the Steelers. One that puts Sticky Lombardi's back into the trophy case.
Well, at least have the option, or have the choice. I mean, what's the word I'm looking for?
The opportunity.
The opportunity, yes, that's a good one.
You can't put Sticky Lombardi's in there if you don't even make it to the championship game.
Right.
You're the perennial AFC North champion. Why can't you get past that? What? Show me. Do it. Come on, Let's go. I also want to mention something here real quick, too. We are going to have, hopefully a very special show here in a couple of months. But there's potentially a very large Hall of Fame celebration coming up here for the NFL here in the beginning of August. And if the Lord is willing, we will be there for that celebration and we will be able to have firsthand account of that. But the reason why I want to say that is this. There are quite a few Steelers that are on the docket going into the Hall of Fame. We're talking about Coach Bill Cowher. We're talking about Troy Polamalu. We're talking about Alan Faneca.
Finally.
Sorry. Offensive lineman. Yeah, man. He should have been in a long time ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie Shell.
There you go.
Going in. So quite a few Steelers players, and it's quite exciting.
Well, we also get to see one of
Peyton
my
Manning.
favorites.
I mean, I can't wait to hear his speech.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear his speech. You know what I mean? Because Peyton Manning was... I mean, look, you got to put Peyton Manning up there as one of the best all time. I mean, when you look at other Colt quarterbacks, Johnny Unitas.
Right.
Johnny Unitas was such a student of the game, was such a film hound, was such a guy that was always learning, just like Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And if I had a team going forward, Peyton Manning, I would pick Peyton Manning to be my quarterback.
I love that he got cut from the Colts and he went to Denver and said, okay, we'll do it here,
And did it. Okay, Here you go. What? I just got one thing to say.
However, if Brad Pitt is... I'm not Brad Pitt. Brad Paisley is there, I might have to bring some earbuds to... Because if they start doing commercials...
Yeah, if he comes up there and does a commercial, the only thing I want to hear him say is, Omaha! That's all I care. I just want to hear him say. Anyway. But yeah, looking forward to that coming up here in August. So we'll give you some live coverage on that. I just want to mention some things here about Penn State real quick. They had their pro day, and the Steelers were in attendance there. Mike Tomlin called it a freak show because of the talent of the Penn State players that are going to be available for the draft. Micah Parsons being one of them, Fairmuth being the other one. Two really big names that are going to be coming out of Penn State that are going to probably garner first-round draft picks this year, and I think that's really exciting.
That is exciting.
It is, and to have the teams come into the Penn State Pro Day, so that's really cool. Be looking forward to the blue and white game. Will be coming up here shortly. I think they start doing that in May or the end of April, beginning of May, something like that. Hopefully they'll be able to do that this year and not have any COVID restrictions or anything like that. So
here's hoping.
Yeah, hopefully Penn State they did get some good top recruits this year, and hopefully they can straighten out their quarterback situation and be able to put some running backs and some defense out there and maybe do some a little bit better than they did last year. Woo! Then again, anything would be better than last year.
Well, last year there were a lot of issues because of your friend, but
like I said, only can go but up for Penn State. So there you go. How about that? All right, the last thing I want to get into here, and this is also a very exciting time of the year for me, because this is the beginning time of year of Formula One.
Yeah. Regular season, regular start date.
Yep, regular start date. Well, not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite. We're a little late. Okay, we're a little late. 2 weeks.
That's
we're
not
2
too
weeks
bad.
late. But the reason why they're 2 weeks late is because there was a COVID situation in Australia. Mm-hmm. So they moved the Australian Grand Prix, which is traditionally the first race of the season.
Right.
Because of the COVID concerns and things of that nature, they moved the Australian Grand Prix to the, I believe, second to last race of the season in November, and they switched the Bahrain Grand Prix from one of the lasts to now they're racing in Bahrain.
Right. Well, it's nice that they could rearrange things like that.
Exactly. So there's still going to be 20 races on the schedule this year, and as we said in the teaser here, we got some fresh faces and new places and some old names.
Well, the one that really gets to you is Mick. I mean, that is just a legacy that we're hoping that he can carry on, and just to see him in Formula One is so amazing. I mean, that's just a testament to the talent of Mike Schumacher.
Yeah, he was allowed to.
Sorry, Michael Schumacher.
Mick Schumacher. He was allowed to use his father's call sign for Formula One racing. They graciously allowed him to use the call sign MSC.
Nice.
So we get to see that again on the grid. Okay, it's going to be in last because he's for the Haas team right now. That's a Ferrari sister team. But they tout his talent because obviously the pedigree. But you're going to see it kind of down at the bottom this year because Haas has a tough car this year, but we'll be rooting for them. Go Haas, go United States team, and go Mick Schumacher. All right, we got another legendary name is back.
What's that?
Alonso.
All right.
Oh, man. Look, this is the first time we've gotten an Alonso, a Vettel, a Hamilton,
a Schumacher,
a Raikkonen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only one we're missing is Button and Rosberg, right? And now we got the Schumacher name back,
mm-hmm.
right? And Alonso. That's a lot.
There's some really talented drivers, so maybe we'll see someone beat Lewis Hamilton in a race this year.
You know who it might be? You know who it might be the first ones? McLaren is coming on strong. They really are. And be looking for the Flying Dutchman coming out of Red Bull. Verstappen. Man, that Red Bull looks good.
Does it?
It does. It really looks good. And they're saying the Ferrari looks good too.
Well, like you said for Penn State, you can only go up from here.
Yeah, right. Because after they had the year they had last year, yeah, well, it can only go up from here. Vettel is now racing for the Aston Martin team now, and the pairing for the Ferrari prancing horses is Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and Karun Chandok, one of the announcers for Sky Racing, said that he thinks that's one of the strongest teams on the grid.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, not taking into account Hamilton and Bottas. I mean, obviously with Hamilton, but Bottas is no slouch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, going to be interesting this year. We got to watch first practice, and the first race is always a little hard to judge. So we'll see how qualifying goes coming up here on Saturday. And can't wait.
Yeah.
It's exciting. We're going to have Clag, and we're going to have...
Turn the speakers up.
Turn the speakers up. We're going to see lights out. We're going to see rubber squealing and all kinds of fun. So, yeah, man, can't wait to see that.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sounds good. We're so much better than we were last year at this time.
I mean, it's amazing how much of a turnaround it's been just since last year at this time. Where we were and things like that. So, thank you very much, RoNece, for joining us.
Thank you.
This was another great show. We love covering all the great sports and all the great stories and all the great fun. And we love kind of just,
This is how we talk a lot.
Yeah. It's sad that we talk like this a lot.
we sit around and have conversations about sports. Weird.
Okay, so we thought we just recorded, and now we're doing that now. And so thank you all very much for listening. Appreciate you checking us out. Please hit the like, subscribe, and follow, and all those other fun things. We'll be trying to come at you here now a little bit more on a consistent basis. Now that SteelFlyers is off the IR. Or going to be coming off the IR here soon after a long, arduous winter with ankle surgery. So, coming to the end of that. So, all right, appreciate that. All right, I think we got it. Just remember, folks, stay safe, stay strong, and hang tough.